Perhaps a good way to think about Jared Bernstein is to imagine him as the titular character of a bad network sitcom called That's Jared, in which every week the buffoonish chief White House economic advisor stumbles into another embarrassing made-for-TV blunder. The canned laughter will erupt, of course, as credits roll, and we hear the theme close with, "It can only be Jared." Unfortunately, this isn't fiction, and it's not funny. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC-TV. Boy, what a weekend it has been for those of us who are interested in truth and economics. Gaining web attention Friday, the 3rd of May, and then continuing to spread like a bad joke, the man whom we at MRC-TV already have cited for exhibiting utter vacancy when it comes to economics, again has made himself a laughingstock by exhibiting a faux affable, almost clownish, inability to explain how the corrupt and inflationary U.S. government's fiat monetary system works. The clip is derived from a film on what many Americans have come to know as modern monetary theory, or MMT, and opens with Bernstein saying,
"The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money."
In response, author and Stony Brook University professor Stephanie Kelton, the primary proponent of MMT, details of which we soon will explore in this video, well, she asks a simple question.
Why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Now, before addressing her questions or seeing how Jared couldn't answer them, one can note that she presents us with the false assumption at the heart of every government spending and government-mandated currency problem. She assumes the we. She assumes you and I, by definition of the central authority imposing this definition on us, are part of her plans, and that the diktats of the government are something to which we somehow magically consent. Well, Jared fares even worse than she does, responding with what starts a series of malapropisms and mental zigzags that is unbelievable as he tries to figure out how government spending, borrowing, fiat currency, and logic can actually coexist. Hint, Jared, they can't. Thus, he says,
well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing.
Remember that confusing part, because it comes in handy for the end of this wonderful episode of That's Jared.
I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why...
At this point, he seems to wonder what he's saying, and then tries to reassure himself, sort of like a blind man trying to navigate a maze of his own creation.
The government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do?
Not quite, but Jared retains his smile as he offers this meandering exposition.
They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah.
Jared appears to nod as if reassuring himself that he's hit on the right point. And indeed, he finally got it, or half of it. The U.S. government spends so much money that it can't balance the books solely through taxation. And thus, it floats bonds, which people buy. Remember that, in quotes, people. Of course, this contradicts what he said at the opening about the government lending the money. Sure, the feds hand out plenty of unconstitutional loans to college kids and cozy corporations, to foreign nation states and international organizations. But when looking at how the U.S. government funds itself, well, Jared ought to know that it's not through lending. It's through taxing floating bonds, i.e. borrowing Jared, and then taxing and borrowing more to pay off the previous issuance of bonds. And what entity buys those bonds? Well, the majority of the treasuries are bought by the bank consortium to which Congress in 1913 gave a monopoly to print what the government calls legal currency, that being the Federal Reserve. And the Fed doesn't tell us what it holds in any commodity like gold to be actually called reserves for that term, Federal Reserve. Shh, don't tell anybody that they won't tell anybody. And of course, the Federal Reserve just invents its money, more and more of it to, that's right, buy US bonds. And since the CARES Act of 2020, they also buy the bonds of cozy corporations, the names and balance sheets of which the Fed is not required to divulge to us troglodytes out here. Now, part of this whole shell game gets appropriate attention from proponents of MMT, and this is part of Professor Kelton's logic trap for Bernstein. Of course, Bernstein already has trapped himself by believing there is anything morally acceptable or constitutionally proper or even economically laudable about the Federal Reserve cartel. But before Ms. Kelton prods Bernstein some more, he actually continues.
A lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to
That's right. He flips back to his original confusion. It's unbelievable, everybody.
So, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Because it's like.
And he pauses, perhaps perplexed by this incredible conundrum. Yeah, folks, this is the Biden administration's head of economic advisors.
The government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
And that's it. Biden's great instructor in economics, well, he's all set. And remember, even though he admitted it's confusing, it's not confusing. Well, to supply some clarity, let's bring him and Ms. Kelton into economics class. First, we'll address the error in Kelton's premise, offered in her trapping question, which is the idea that we are borrowing in a currency we print ourselves. One can remind Ms. Kelton and Mr. Bernstein that the US government does not print its own money. The Fed does that and then buys the government debt that Congress keeps issuing. This, by definition, is an inflation of the money supply, which bids up prices for goods and services, bids down the buying power of the Federal Reserve notes we already have, inspires malinvestment into projects, hirings, and the use of resources that normally would not see such investment, and leads to an eventual bust. As people pull back their spending, the investments are revealed to have been made on false economic assumptions, and prices have to drop to liquidation levels. The Constitution does allow the U.S. Treasury to coin money rather than print it, but the Constitution does not say the government money shall be the sole mandated currency. MMTers pose such questions because essentially they carry the inflationary baton handed down by John Maynard Keynes. The entire paradigm of Keynesian economics is arrogant. It assumes for earners how to invest, when to invest, and why, and it results in massive inflationary price increases. And the new crop of central planners pushing MMT embrace Keynesianism, but they add two caveats. As Joseph Solons Mullen has written for the Mises Institute, they think there's no need for a central bank to engage in the money printing because the US Treasury can do it, and they think that the way to control the inflation caused by government-created money is to tax the real money away from us. It's a cozy way to throw the albatross of inflation around everybody's necks. And it not only inflates the money supply and causes all the boom-bust problems I noted, it takes real money from real people's pockets, just like today, and replaces it with fake fiat government-mandated cash. How about this instead? How about Bernstein and Kelton leave us out of their mandates and taxes and fake money plans? That would be a lot more enjoyable than more reruns of this tragic comedy headed by Jared and supported by a cast of MMT pretenders who want to take the stage. That royal we they keep employing, I don't see that as appropriate. Please stop embracing me with your arms and leave me alone. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you're watching on Rumble. Thanks for finding us there. Hit the follow and share the videos far and wide, especially with people who might be interested in free market economics. You can, of course, watch us on YouTube, where, yes, they do censor us. And please find us at MRCTV.org. MRCTV.org is where you'll find what the whole team is doing. And while you're there, please consider contributing to the Media Research Center. It really goes a long way to help us continue doing the work. You can also find us inside Facebook. You can find us on TikTok, while they're still around, on Instagram, and on Twitter/X. And if you want to find me on Gab, I'm at Gardner Goldsmith on Gab, and on X, I'm at Gard Goldsmith. Thanks for watching, everybody. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.
I want to invite you as my guest on a very special, once-in-a-lifetime, 7-day post-election cruise in the Caribbean. It's going to be a blast.